class size.
A warning that Scotty dogs are under threat. We will have not one, but 5 of them here in the studio to find... Yes, 5.
What?
To find out why campaigners want more of us to give them homes.
Good morning. We've got some patchy fog and frost in southern areas this morning. Shine and showers. I'll have all the details later in the programme.
Good morning. It's Tuesday, the 27th of February. Our main story for you. The former Post Office chairman, Henry Staunton, will appear before MPs later to answer questions about compensation for victims of the Horizon IT scandal.
And this will be the first time that Mr Staunton has spoken publicly since claiming that he was told to delay payouts to sub-postmasters who were wrongly prosecuted, sparking that bitter row last week with the business secretary, Kemi Badenoch. Our business correspondent Emma Simpson explains.
Henry Staunton was sacked as Post Office chairman just over a year into the job. But this boardroom veteran didn't go quietly, making a series of explosive claims in a newspaper interview. The next day, the business secretary hit back, accusing him of making wild and baseless allegations.
This has been a real war of words, a first-class row with claims and counterclaims last week, including how and why Mr Staunton, a city bigwig, was fired. The Business and Trade Select Committee have been looking into why so many sub-postmasters are still waiting for their full and final compensation. And they've added him to the long list of witnesses today.
Including several victims. Tony Downey's one of them. He ended up bankrupt after trying to keep his Lake District post office afloat.
Giving me back what they took from me. Obviously, there's the money. I put 36,000 or almost 36,000 into my post office. But then I've lost my business. I lost my home. I lost my health. So when you say compensation, I mean, that's something additional to what they took. But that's how I see it.
It was the ITV drama that lit the fuse, putting the scandal back on the agenda.
Post Office Limited is stealing my livelihood, my shop, my job, my home, my life savings, my good name.
Alan Bates, the hero who took on the post office and won. He recently got his final offer of compensation, but it was only about a sixth of what he had requested, and is also answering questions today. Yesterday, the government announced plans to try and speed up compensation, including offering higher interim payments for some of those waiting for their claims to be fully assessed, or those challenging their offers. But for many victims, the wait has gone on long enough. Emma Simpson, BBC News.
And in about half an hour's time, we will be talking to the MP Liam Byrne, who is chair of that Common Select Committee that's going to be talking all about the Post Office scandal later on today. But now John has more of today's news.
Yes, Sally, let's start in the Middle East, shall we? Because President Biden has said that he is hopeful a ceasefire in Gaza could... We're joined by Scotty dogs because, despite their popularity among monopoly players, royals, even US presidents, Scottish Terriers have joined a growing number of British dog breeds on the Kennel Club's watch list amid fears that their numbers are dwindling. Not dwindling.
Hello, this is Breakfast with John Kay and Sally Nugent.
Thank you for joining us this Tuesday morning when the former Post Office chairman, Henry Staunton, is due to appear before MPs a bit later. He was sacked, of course, following a row with the business secretary, Kemi Badenoch, last week over claims that he was instructed to stall compensation payments to victims of the Horizon IT scandal.
Well, Liam Byrne is chair of the Business and Trade Select Committee, which will be questioning him, and joins us now. Morning, Mr Byrne. This is quite a moment, I imagine, for lots of people who will be very closely watching the answers that you're able to discover this afternoon. What sort of questions are you going to be asking?
Well, we're just trying to get to the truth, really. We're trying to figure out why is financial redress for the sub-postmasters who have suffered the biggest miscarriage of justice in British history. Why is financial redress so slow? And why are the offers so low? So Mr. Staunton's obviously made allegations that he was told to go slow by the Secretary of State. She's obviously argued that that was not the case. But the question remains, well, despite what the kind of he said, she said dimension to this debate, the bottom line is that the money's not going out the door fast enough. About 80% of the budget for compensation for sub-postmasters has still not been paid out. And, years after this scandal, no one thinks that's acceptable.
I know that you are going to be asking both of them, both men, that you're talking to this afternoon, to swear an oath before they give evidence. How unusual is that, and why are you doing it?
So select committees have the power to send for people and papers, and we do have the power to put people on oath in front of our hearings. And, the reason for that is that there is just so much dispute about what the facts of the case are. So it's a little bit like a court of law. People are sworn to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And that's what the public record now demands, because the truth is that on our committee, we're just sick of this now. We're just sort of sick of people not being straight with us or with Parliament or with the sub-postmasters about what's going wrong with the process. So we will be going through the compensation process in some detail. And I'll be asking our witnesses today, OK, if they weren't told to slow down, were they actually told to speed up? Because as we've gone through the minutes of the Post Office Board that we summoned last week, I can't actually see any evidence that the Post Office was told to get a grip and actually speed up the compensation payments. So, look, there's a new bill that is coming to Parliament that is going to overturn convictions, and lots of us in Parliament are thinking about how do we use that bill to create a legally binding timetable for making sure that once and for all offers are fair and offers are fast.
One of the things many people have spoken to us about here on the programme is how difficult it is to make a claim, how much help and support they might need to make that claim, and how much historical data they need in order to fill in all the forms they need to fill in. Will you be talking about how to make claiming any easier?
Yes, and there's a good case at the moment for the compensation process basically being taken off the Post Office, because some of the information that we've published yesterday also shows that, frankly, there is this toxic culture of disbelief that is still prevailing at the Post Office, where sub-postmasters are just not believed. Now, if you go through the compensation forms, it's 14 pages long. People basically have to apply blindfold. They've got no idea what information the Post Office has got, and obviously they won't often have records of their own. But then when the offers come from the Post Office, there's no explanation for how those offers have actually been calculated. And if you want to challenge that offer, you're then in this kind of David and Goliath struggle with the Post Office. Sub-postmasters have only given about £1,200 worth of legal assistance at that stage, and they're up against the might of the Post Office and one of the biggest law firms in the country. So it's almost like the Post Office is playing with loaded dice here, that the odds are stacked against sub-postmasters, even when they're just trying to get financial redress for the incredible pain that they've gone through.
So how do you address the inequalities there? How do you address the inequalities of, is it just over £1,000 in legal aid against, as you said, one of the biggest law firms in the country? What can you do about that?
Well, I'm afraid I'm coming to the conclusion that this whole process needs taking off the Post Office, and we almost need like an independent authority to process the claims. We need a legally binding timetable that becomes law of the land, if you like. It's legally binding on the Department for Business to get the money out the door within a certain time frame. But there's a real case for basically upping the amount of legal aid that is available for sub-postmasters at the beginning of the process, not halfway through, which is when it kicks in at the moment. Because what we're finding and what we're hearing is that so many people are now just sort of exhausted by this. Sometimes they'll be in their 70s or even their 80s, and so they'll just kind of settle for anything, really. And that's just not British justice. That's not fair. What we need is a process that is fair and a process that is fast.
One of the things we know is important is for the Post Office to admit liability for causing bankruptcy for a very specific reason, because any compensation that might come out could then be eaten up by the official receiver, couldn't it? So can you make a difference with that?
We can. I mean, the way that the Post Office is presenting its offers at the moment is it's like a riddle, basically. It just sort of presents you with a table of numbers. It doesn't offer any kind of explanation as to how those numbers are calculated. It doesn't offer any kind of protection for the way that payment is then kind of made. So, that's why so many people are finding themselves in this David and Goliath struggle. After everything they've been through, it's almost like they're going through the whole kind of process of prosecution all over again. And as I say, we now know that the Post Office knew about this scandal and the problems that caused it as early as 2004. So we're talking 20 years on, and we're still at the stage where 80% of the compensation budget has not been paid out. It's just frankly unacceptable.
Liam Byrne, MP, Chair of the Commons Select Committee, thank you very much indeed. And full coverage of that committee will be shown live this afternoon on BBC News Channel.
It's going to be a busy day, isn't it, in Westminster? Just after 20 to 8, Jon joins us on the sofa, and it's kind of
good morning.
What might have been for Maidstone, isn't it?
Celebration more than devastation, I think, for Maidstone.
And fair redress for the sub-postmasters. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on this first panel as we try and get to grips with how the process is supposed to work and where the roadblocks are. Before we begin our evidence session today, I need to read out the sub judice waiver which has been granted to us by Mr. Speaker. Exercise caution in what they say and to avoid referring in detail to cases that remain before the courts. Mr. Cresswell, perhaps I could just start with you. Can you just give us a sense of what your role is in the redress schemes?
Of course. Morning, everyone. So, yes, I'm Carl Cresswell. I'm the Director within the Department for Business and Trade who is responsible for Post Office policy. Specifically, I am also the Senior Responsible Owner for the GLO Group Litigation Order Compensation Scheme, and I oversee the Post Office's delivery of the Horizon Shortfall Scheme and the compensation for those with overturned convictions.
OK, we're just going to go very quickly through what everybody's role is. Mr. Cheshire.
I'm Mark Cheshire. I'm a partner at Addleshaw Goddard with a firm. I'm the leader of the team advising DBT in relation to the GLO compensation scheme.
Thank you, Mr. Francis.
Good morning. I'm Rob Francis from the law firm Dintons. We've been appointed to be the claims facilitators for the GLO scheme.
Thank you. And Sir Ross.
Yes, I'm Ross Cranston. I'm the independent reviewer, which essentially means I'm the long stop, as it were, the final arbiter.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everybody.
In GLO claims, I should say.
Mr. Cresswell, can you just tell us who in the department is actually making the final decision about GLO claims?
It depends upon the nature of the claim, but I head a steering group that oversees the claims in the round. In particular, I, with my finance and legal colleagues, look at advice from Addleshaw Goddard on the complex claims. I don't sign off myself those 75k upfront offer claims that we discussed at the previous committee when I gave evidence.
So this is a draft offer letter. It's very long. It's pretty complicated, and it basically provides two claimants like a box. That's it. That's the summary of their claims. Who signs off the bottom line in these claims?
So the actual number you mean at the bottom of the claim, that is me and my colleagues within the department on the basis of advice, and that is the initial offer that is then sent out by Addleshaw Goddard to the claimant's lawyers.
And what do you do to satisfy yourself that those claims are fair?